Not having done enough of a background check is not an excuse this time. God, this is such a mess. On July 18th, Honkai Star Rail, which is a massive gacha game made by the same developer of Genshin Impact, which is Hoyoverse, made this tweet, which is showing off a character that will be releasing in the upcoming updates. This is something they do all the time. It's called drip marketing. It's to build hype, and they keep building hype up until the character comes out. In this case, the character's name is MOZE, and he's a 4-star. There's usually a quote of the character, and then a little description of who they are. Things got tricky though, when people saw who the English voice was. Chris Niosi. But not everyone was really aware. I would even say it's in the minority. Many in the comments are very hyped, are praising the character's design, but there are some, like this one right here, saying, just Google his English voice actor, just wow Hoyo. Okay, let's Google him. Chris Niosi. Okay, great. Well, here's the thing. You scroll down and you go to page 2, you will find a Tumblr post in which he apologizes for committing heinous things towards his ex-partners, colleagues, and friends over the course, in his own words, over the course of 10 years. We're talking abuse, stalking, harassment, manipulation, you name it, and it's all self-admitted by himself. This used to be on the first page of Google, I'm not even joking, but it got replaced because of this Reddit post. And this leads me to the other aspect of this mess, which is such an implosion. The case of Chris is special because in this case, we have 2 high-profile voice actors from Honkai Star Rail and from the English dubbing community, and they both have come out to talk about this while having completely differing opinions. One day after the announcement of the character, a very well-renowned voice actor by the name of ALEJANDRO SAAB, aka Cyyu, which is his VTuber persona, said that he just got back on Twitter and that he was going to have a serious talk on stream regarding this. It was very emotional, and he even ended up breaking down crying over this. I thought this was going to be the peak. It wasn't going to get worse than this. Guess what? The voice actor for Sunday, someone you definitely know if you played Honkai Star Rail, and who doesn't use social media and stays off of Twitter except for professional reasons, made a Reddit post on r/Honkai Star Rail talking about this exact controversy. This post is currently sitting at 1,400 upvotes. It used to be higher, but it's been getting downvoted. And it was the first time many people were even hearing of this, okay? This is very serious because unlike the whole Diluc voice actor accusations, where there were holes in the story and many people found it hard to make up their opinion on it unless more proof came out, this right here is so different because Chris himself had made a post admitting to everything in his own words. And it is slowly making the entire community implode within itself. Let's talk about it. Christopher Edwin Niosi, otherwise known as Kerbifer online, is an accomplished voice actor, and he was in some pretty high-profile roles like Arataka Reagan from Mob Psycho 100. Additionally, he voiced the main character in Fire Emblem Three Houses under Nintendo, and had many other high-profile roles like Final Fantasy VII, Naruto Shippuden, etc. He was an accomplished voice actor by all means. However, all of that came crashing down in 2019 when Chris was 30 years old. Overnight, many of his high-profile roles were immediately replaced with other voice actors, and he was pretty much excommunicated from the industry. This was a very big deal in the voice acting community. Nintendo didn't want to work with him anymore because he showed off the fact that he got cast in Fire Emblem in his Discord when he wasn't supposed to. But all the other roles he lost weren't because of that. They were because of a way more concerning problem, the real trigger for this entire controversy. But what has the ability to make someone as skilled as Chris to lose out on all these roles overnight? Well, it all started on Tumblr. Zero Incorporated made this post with the title, "Chris Kerbifer Niosi is an emotionally abusive asshole," on July 16th, 2019. And this was, with no exaggeration, the beginning of the end for Chris, his career, and his reputation. Let's read. Chris Niosi is abusive and people need to know the truth about him. My name is Amy and I am, hopefully, his last ex-girlfriend. I dated him from September 2017 to April 2019 and it was a miserable experience to say the least. I try to be an open-minded person with an even more open heart, but that was a waste of effort because this man is a piece of shit, and it is entirely his choice to be one. I knew Chris Niosi for several years, but I'm not going into the full history of our relationship. What matters is how he treats women behind closed doors and that he shouldn't be able to keep getting away with it. Overall, he was a shitty boyfriend, but sucking at dating isn't a crime, so I'm only going to talk about the things people deserve to know about him. She's pretty much saying like, yeah, dude, listen, he does suck at dating, all right? This is a fact, but it shouldn't be enough of a reason to hate him. So let me say what the things he actually did wrong. All right, let's get into it. So, number 1, Chris Niosi has obvious anger management problems and would snap and blow up at the smallest things. He would tell me that's just how I am, and that I needed to deal with it. I hated playing Smash with him because I would win most of the time, and he would rage and scream at the top of his lungs. Near the end of our relationship, I was fearful of his meltdowns every day. Point 2. He would try to manipulate me whenever I told him I had an issue with his behavior. I would tell him things like, I have to walk on eggshells around you, and he would turn it around and say, but I'm walking on eggshells around you! To try to make me out to be the bad guy. He always tried to avoid taking responsibility for shitty things he's done. Point 3. Chris Niosi had no respect for my bodily autonomy. I have a full-time job, and when I came home from work, my only request was that he wouldn't jump on me the second I walked in. All I wanted was a little time to decompress from the day and get a shower, but he would grope me every single day despite my protest. I told him to please not do that many times. He would pout and argue and continue doing it anyway. Point 4. Chris Niosi lied to me twice about how often he was communicating with his ex-girlfriend. I never had a problem with their friendship to begin with, and he told me, without any questioning on my part, that they only talked once a month. I eventually found out that was a bold-faced lie, and he was speaking to her every single day of our relationship. He claimed he didn't realize how often he was talking to her. Who would believe such nonsense? He was intentionally hiding this from me, and also probably her. I believe she was not aware of what he was doing either. Point 5. I asked him to set boundaries with his ex, and he battled me so much that I asked him to cut contact completely. He fought tooth and nail to keep talking to her despite how much this shit was damaging me, and he even called me the unreasonable one. She contacted him one day out of the blue, and he came to my office to take me out to lunch, only to keep me hostage in front of my office building that I must give him my blessing to respond to her. He refused to take no as an answer and was shouting at me. I felt forced to say yes, even though I truly did not want to, or else he would continue making a scene in front of my workplace. Wow, dude, okay. Point 6. He complained anytime I wanted some time to myself. He gets so much more free time than me, and whenever I wanted some damn space, he would constantly try to butt in and gripe that I'm not spending time with him. I explained to him several times that I should be allowed to have just a tiny ounce of solitude, never listened. He was also jealous of my friends and would whine anytime I wanted to hang out with them without him. According to Chris, my world had to absolutely revolve around him and never deviate. Point 7. He once physically manhandled me in front of my friends at a get-together because I wanted to get a drink. I stood up and he forcefully pushed me back down and scolded me in full view of my friends. I was extremely embarrassed. Point 8. Chris Niosi made it extremely difficult for me to get to know his friends. I clicked with some of them and others I needed more time to hit things off, but that was a problem for Chris. He would argue with me every time we came home from seeing his friends that I wasn't trying hard enough and not talking enough. So many arguments. I could not for the life of me understand why he got so upset that I didn't meet his bizarre standards for communicating with his friends. It made every encounter with them more and more stressful to the point that I was too afraid to see them anymore. They did nothing wrong. This was entirely on him. Point 9. Worst of all, Chris Niosi was planning to sexually take advantage of me when I was very intoxicated on my birthday last year. He even tried to tell a friend that he had implied permission from me when confronted about it, which is absolutely not true. That only gave me confirmation he knew exactly what he was doing. Thankfully, I was aware at the time to tell him to back off, but it disturbs me to this day that he saw me being drunk on my birthday as an opportunity. Chris Niosi is a bad person and he knows it. He would tell me he was just simply oblivious to all his wrongdoings, but I refused to believe it. He doesn't get to claim ignorance and abuse women. Everything was intentional. I decided I had enough and moved on, and he tried every trick in the book to manipulate me into staying. After I broke up with him, he couldn't even respect me enough to give me distance. He was aggressive about taking me out to dinner and asked me out at least 3 times in the week after I dumped him, and he also had the audacity to ask me to be friends with benefits. Oh my god. No respect, no remorse. He knew exactly what he was doing at every turn. He chooses to be an asshole and will continue to do so until he dies. This man will never change. It's who he is, and he clearly prefers it that way. She then ends the statement by saying this: I have absolutely no reason to make this up. None. But you don't have to take my word for it. Just maybe consider the many words of many people when they say Chris Kerbefer Niosi is an abusive man who will continue to use and abuse other people. He needs to come clean about all the horrible things he has done. To those who want to give him another chance and hope to see him better himself, I sincerely wish you the best. I know I tried. Thank you for reading. Yeah, that's a lot to take in, right? See, this is why these things are so nasty, because you're pretty much being pushed into a private relationship of two people and are seeing all the ugly things that happen there. But granted, this isn't enough to take someone down. Not anymore, at least. People these days require more proof than just he said, she said. This is why many people chose to not believe the person accusing the Diluc voice actor of committing the things they were accusing them of. There have been too many cases in the last few years where someone claims something and gets proven wrong, even after having done so much damage to the person they're accusing. And let's be real here, who in 2019 would have seen this Tumblr post? Who even uses Tumblr anymore? This wasn't going to end his career outright. What changes everything here, though, as I mentioned before, is the fact that he admitted to all this. The next day, he just came clean. Chris made this post on his Kerbefer account, saying, "It's time that I apologize to all of the people I've hurt." Bear in mind, this post got deleted, right? The only reason you can see it is because it was reblogged by Ultra Eric the Red. And ironically, what shows up on Google on the second page is actually the repost from Eric the Red, right? Like, the post itself, if you copy the link and were to go to it, it says it's gone, and it just links you back to Kerbefer's profile. I don't know when he deleted it specifically, but all I know is that you can't find it anymore on his profile. So thank you to Ultra Eric the Red for preserving this piece of evidence. This is a long post, but it's very important for you to understand every word in here, because this is why people are mad. This is why people are very furious at Hoyoverse to have cast him even after 5 years. This is him admitting that he has been a horrible person, not just to Amy, but many other people. He also makes it worse for himself with crazy statements like the first sentence. Let's read. My name is Christopher Niosi, also known as Kerbefer. I am 30 years old, and for about half my lifetime, I have horribly mistreated and abused friends, colleagues, and even my significant others. It is time that I addressed each and every one of those people and responded to their feelings with individual apologies for what I've done to hurt them. This will be a master post containing all of the appropriate posts in one location so that the people they have been written for, along with anyone else who wishes to read them, can easily access the information. I will provide a foreword about everything. My most recent ex-girlfriend Amy and I broke up in April of this year. She decided to cut ties in May, shortly after. Finally, on Saturday of this past weekend, she decided to create a call-out post detailing the emotionally abusive things I did to her throughout our relationship. I decided that the right thing to do was to take responsibility for my actions and respond publicly. I took 2 full days to write an apology to Amy for all of the things I've done and posted it on Monday night. The following morning, I was besieged by Amy, many concerned people who left comments of their own, as well as several of the victims of my abusive behavior in the past, to come clean and apologize to everyone I've hurt. I have finally decided to do so. Before reading any of these, I ask that to anyone and everyone who sees this, including those I'm apologizing to please allow me to put some things out there that are likely to come off as selfish, I feel are very important. I know that my decision to do this is inherently going to come off as a PR stunt or some form of damage control. While I can understand why people will think this, I want to assure you that it is not. This is not an attempt to preserve my career or livelihood or my social standings with anybody. I have accepted that by talking about all of these things, my life is going to change and there will be consequences. More importantly, this is not an expectance of any form of forgiveness either, as I will be stating many times in several of these apologies that I do not expect any of the following people to forgive me for all I've done. This is about finally, for possibly the first time in my life, doing the right thing. It may also, for the first time in my life, be the first real step I'm taking to change, to become a better person. Guys, bear in mind, This is someone who's 30 years old, okay? These statements are coming from someone who's not 20. He is 30 years old, right? You realize how huge this is, right? For someone to say, this is the first time in my life where I'm doing the right thing. And no one forced him to do that. His ex Amy in her statement, everyone who's come out against him over the years, no one has forced him to utter the sentence. It's such a crazy thing to say. Anyway, he continues. Most of the people I have written these apologies to have had call-out posts regarding their personal negative experiences with me for the last several years, and they have gone publicly unaddressed by me. I also state multiple times in these apologies that I understand full well my choosing to respond to them now as opposed to when they were first posted is far too late and long overdue. There is no denying or excusing that fact, but here, now, I genuinely want to make amends for all of the horrible things I have done. I'm going to share something sensitive that is related to my decision to do this, just as this is not intended to be a PR stunt. What I'm about to say is not in any way fabricated, nor is it meant to manipulate readers or instill any kind of bias. It is simply the truth and I feel is relevant. I have only ever experienced 2 times where I felt legitimately suicidal. The first time was 5 years ago, the week I moved to California, not knowing how to handle the shock of seeing call-out posts directed towards me, thinking my life was over and that there would be no way to survive, and that I should die as penance. So as I already mentioned, and as he mentions here for the first time, his ex-girlfriend wasn't the first post calling him out and seeking to expose who he was to the public. If he had chosen to ignore her post just like he had ignored all the other posts, then I don't think his career would have really been endangered. But it was too late for that now. He then continues, I survived it with the support of friends, but then I chose never to address the things that were said about me. They were people that were once my friends, significant others, people I looked up to, people who looked up to me, and all this time I stayed silent. However, the second time I felt suicidal was this past Monday night, a few hours before posting my apology to Amy. I had become so internally conflicted about if it was really the right thing to do or not. This time, not because of concern for it ruining my life, but because I wanted so badly to make amends and I didn't know if this would even be good enough. That if it was truly sign of me wanting to actually change for real. The pressure was a feeling I have never experienced in my entire life and I will never forget it. I overcame this feeling and solidified my decision with 100% certainty. I needed to speak from my heart, so I seized this newfound resolve and I went ahead and posted it. Please understand, the reason I'm sharing this information about my mental state is not in any way to garner sympathy or pity or appear as a victim. I am not the victim, I am the offender. I am sharing this information about the 2 moments I felt suicidal to illustrate that, while I haven't changed enough and it will absolutely not happen overnight, that the experience left a lasting impression on me that I am choosing to use in a positive way to really begin the change. I have wanted to become a better person for what feels like my entire life. It's not something that should be such a struggle, but somehow I have made it the most difficult thing in the world. I may have learned and developed and improved in some aspects, but not enough. The damage I've caused and the abusive acts I've committed towards people that I cared about is evidence of that. If I want to be a decent human being, this is all only part of the first step. I have a lot more work to do that I plan on diving into after I finish moving to a new house, but that's not the focus of this point. The point is, this is it. Taking responsibility for all the things I've done is only the beginning. If this entire thing is still just part of the first step, I want to do it right, no matter what it takes. So then, he links all the individual apologies he has made to people who have come out talking about him and their terrible experience with him. Now, according to Twitter and many Tumblr comments, this is barely scraping the surface, but for the time being, let's just pretend like these are all the people that he abused over the years. Because I want to show you the variety here, okay? So the first one's Amy, the person who made the post against him that we just finished reading, former girlfriend and employed editor. Then you have Tara Welker, former friend. Then you have Audrey Kerr, former girlfriend and employed animator. Then you have Kaylin Denton, former friend and actor. Filthy Animal, former friend. John Markle, fellow animator and former fan. And then you have another former fan, Anthony Logato. So these people ranged from anything of being an ex-partner to a co-worker to fans, right? And of course, to friends. He then apologizes to his friends, his family, his fans, and says that he wants to use this space to cast an open call to anyone else that he's yet to address personally with a full apology. That he wants to do this until he makes amends with everyone he's affected over the years. And that he's not looking for forgiveness. He only hopes that he's taking the first true step to being a better person and that he'll do his best to never let anyone else down or hurt anyone else he cares about ever again. So I have to mention this, right? Not only was this post deleted, I don't know when exactly, but it was deleted. Every single one of these individual apologies also have been deleted and don't exist anymore. For example, if I were to click on Amy's apology, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But the internet does not forget. If I use the Wayback Machine, aka Web Archive, I can find every single one of these posts, and of course, every one of them is fairly lengthy. But for the sake of this video, I want to highlight one apology, right? You can check the other ones, I'm going to link them in the description, but I want to highlight one, which is the apology to his ex-girlfriend, the person who made the post we read initially, Amy. I think it's really important because it highlights who Chris is. He's gonna do this whole apology, and then his ex-girlfriend will actually respond in a very brutal way to his apology, to which he'll reply again. He's gonna get cornered, and you'll get to see how he acts when he is cornered. Because in the end, it's gonna be up to you to decide. You already know the drill. Let's do this. He starts it off by saying, Amy, I failed you. No amount of apology I could ever give will ever make up for that. You were justified to leave me, and you were equally justified to cut ties with me. I was a terrible partner and I made you feel awful. Thus, the absolute least I can do is to take full responsibility for my actions and respond to your feelings openly. I failed in treating you with real respect. You should not have had to put up with my childish temper day in and day out, and it's even worse than it made you fearful. It was never my intention to manipulate you, but that's no excuse. It was my fault you were made to feel this way. I should have taken more responsibility for my toxic behavior and changed. You did not, at any point, ever deserve to be treated that way, because none of it was your fault. He then continues, I failed in listening to you. I deeply regret this because I feel I could have avoided so many of these problems if I had just really, truly listened, but I didn't. I wasn't there for you at a time when you needed me for emotional support over something as insignificant as a party and a long drive. I'm ashamed to have left my own partner alone when she asked me to be there for her. I was immature and selfish in how I never gave you enough of the space or personal time you needed, all while constantly bombarding you with my attention-seeking nonsense. My needy pining for not only your physical but emotional affection was so disrespectful, and the way I would immaturely express myself about it was pathetic. Most of all, I couldn't even respect your one request of me to lay off you when you would get home from work. I was supposed to care for you, and ultimately I acted spoiled and self-serving, putting myself before you. I failed at keeping your trust, the most important thing to me, the thing that our friendship was founded on well before our relationship. I ignorantly betrayed it. I never intended to mislead or keep anything from you, but it doesn't matter because a lie is still a lie, and I understand full well how much that hurt you. Once again, I was selfish and placed several other people's importance before yours when you should have always been my #1 priority. In addition, I could have and should have trusted you more in return. My jealousy and paranoia of your own life choices ran out of control. I should have been more supportive to the life you were forming for yourself and not been so obsessed with having you just be a part of my life and my friends and my world. I failed at making you feel loved. This is exemplary of my lack of respect, my lack of listening, and my lack of trust. I thrust you into a completely new environment out of your comfort zone, all the while thinking that I was helping you when in reality I was mounting utterly unnecessary pressure on you. I would embarrass you like a complete idiot in front of both your friends and mine. I wasn't patient or understanding. I was ignorant and unfair to you. The amount of needless arguments I sparked when I should have just been calm and inviting was ridiculous. This was entirely on me. I thought that inviting you into my life and everything that came with it would be a heaven, but instead all my stupid actions made it into a nightmare. There is no excuse for the way I made you feel while you were living in what should have been a place of happiness. This is where it gets somewhat interesting because he's talking about one of the worst things in his ex-girlfriend's statement, which is him taking advantage of her while she was drunk. He says, there is one specific point that I wish to go into further detail on. Regarding what happened on your birthday, I never once believed I had any form of implied permission to do anything like that to you. Somehow this wasn't communicated properly, and I deeply apologize for that. I swear to you, I never thought that and never had any intention of doing such a thing. Even that aside, while I know I have done a lot of horrible things, especially to you, I also know that I did not and would never ever in my life try to sexually take advantage of anyone. But the fact that the takeaway from what I hoped was going to be a really special day for you is something as heinous as that, I have no words. I am so sorry that I somehow gave you the impression that I had such intentions, and I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. Listen, I don't know why, but this just makes me laugh. I don't know, like, am I twisted? Am I crazy? I'm so sorry that I somehow gave you the impression, right? Like, look, there needs to be proof at a certain point when you are making such a big accusation, but the fact that her perspective differs so much from his perspective in this regard is crazy, right? Like, it's not even on the same wavelength. From his perspective, there was nothing indicating this. From her perspective, it was very clear to her, and it was one of the main reasons why she ended up breaking up with him. It's just crazy sometimes how the two sides of the same story can be so different. We'll revisit this later when she replies. He then continues in the post and says, "With all of that said, the thing I'm most upset about is the fact that the impression I left on you by the end of our time together is that I never really cared about you. That, more than anything, is why I failed you. I have no reason to blame you for feeling that way about me, and I'm deeply ashamed that I drove you to this. I couldn't even maintain what I genuinely wanted to be a close friendship, to just be someone who'd at least be a positive influence in your life. Breaking your trust even further by asking something as ridiculous as if you wanted to be friends with benefits. But then failing further and further with every opportunity I had to be a friend to you. I can't believe I did this. Just as much as you can probably never forgive me for any of this, I too may never be able to forgive myself either." He continues to self-admit that even though it wasn't his intention, there is no obliviousness to claim here. And this is something he'll mention a lot, his intentions, right? It wasn't my intention to do this. It wasn't my intention to come off like this. Well, what were your real intentions though? That's the question, right? Anyway, he says, "I knew what I was doing, but realized far too late the full impact of my actions had on you time and time again. It doesn't matter how much I prattled on and on with excuses and justifications about how I was always trying to improve and learn from the mistakes I made. I should have paid closer attention. I should have worked harder to fix the issues we had, especially when you gave me so many chances. But I failed. If I could have been able to tell all this to you in person or over spoken word, I would have, but I respected your wishes of never speaking to you or interfering with your life again as you requested when you last contacted me." Yeah, because you asked her to be friends with benefits after she left you. I wanted to honor that request after seeing the results of my actions, since trying to fix it was out of the question at that point. But now that it's come to this is the absolute least I can do to start with, and I know full well it's not enough. If there's anything else I could ever do to make up for all I did to hurt you, I would do it in a heartbeat. I can only hope that now you can truly be happy. That's what you deserve. Almost at the end, guys. We almost made it. Good job. To everyone else who has now read both Amy's words and my response, I know I've let you all down. Again, an apology alone isn't good enough. Making amends for this requires serious change in me. I have to change. This is it. I have been going back to my therapist to try and work harder than ever at being a better person, a decent human being, so that something like this never happens to another person I love. Something so simple should not be such a struggle, but I've lost so many friends, colleagues, and even partners over awful behavior like this. The amount of relationships I've destroyed is living evidence that I absolutely need to do better. This is why I've chosen to own this and take responsibility. This is the right thing to do. I want, more than anything, to finally be a good person. Again, this is so weird coming from someone who's 30 years old. You know, I always have to do a double take and be like, wait, how old is he again? He continues, I've tried and miserably failed with countless people to simply be a positive influence on others' lives, but I'm not going to run away. I'm going to keep trying, no matter what. It's been because of my own choices that I've been the person I am, but I cannot be the same person until the day I die. I need to continue forward and just be better. To anyone and everyone who took the time to read through this, if you wish to disassociate with me, you are fully justified and I bear no ill will. I know there will be consequences for this and I accept them. If you wish to continue giving me another chance, then I will not waste your time asking for forgiveness or to wish me luck or offer any more meaningless apologies. I promise I will keep doing my best to not let anyone else down again. Thank you. Chris Kerbifer, Niosi. This, of course, didn't go as smoothly as he had hoped. I'm sure he wanted to just make this apology and move on, but his ex wasn't just gonna let him get through this as easily as he thought. Amy replied, saying, I read your post. I read it at least 5 times, in fact, and I am not impressed. This is an apology for being a bad boyfriend, not an abusive boyfriend. Did you even notice that the words abusive or abuse don't even come up in your post? Of course you did. You're trying to pass this off as you being subpar at relationships, and not the fact that you were emotionally abusive to me. You are dismissing the one thing people are concerned about. Claiming that what happened on my birthday was a miscommunication is a weak excuse. Very, very weak. If you really want to go there, I will remind you that on June 11th, 2018, after Sony's E3 conference, I was drunk and you wanted to have sex. We attempted and I decided that drunk sex wasn't for me and said that I didn't wish to try that again. That was a rule we established. Drunk sex is off the table, and yet, on my birthday later that year, you saw how intoxicated I was and thought you could try it anyway. Miscommunication? No, I don't think so. Holy... Man, am I the only one who feels awkward when a public couple has beef online and exposes all their intimate secrets? No? You do too? No way. We should be friends. Anyway. She then continues, not to mention you completely glossed over the part about how you kept me hostage in your car in front of my office building. Out of everything, that was honestly the most horrifying thing you did to me. You forced me to do something I didn't want to do. I was too afraid to leave the car and go back to work because I thought you would follow me out and scream at me the whole way for all my coworkers to see. You took advantage of me in a place that I had but no choice to give you what you want. Do you not understand how fucking wrong that is? Why didn't you talk about this in your apology? I guess you did something. You at least apologized for years of your extremely toxic behavior and acknowledged that you've hurt many people. I see that and recognize it, but I'm still not impressed. You are not taking full responsibility as you say you are. This reads like a post-messy breakup sob story. It is plain to see you are doing damage control and are hoping you can skate by this pitiful response you call an apology for your abusive behavior. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You are not going to change. You know the truth and are choosing to hide it, hoping you can just barely get out of this by the skin of your teeth. Is this really all you have to say? I wish you would not just apologize to me, but to all those you've hurt. Both you and I know who they are. You said that you would do anything to make it up to me. This is it. Please change my mind. So, holy shit, man, she dropped a nuke on his ass, right? His apology was completely rendered to ashes. His entire thing, everything he wrote, was now meaningless. And this is a good point. When you go back and read this, and then read what she had written here, all of a sudden you realize, wait a second. He didn't even mention half the things that occurred, and the ones he did mention, he definitely aimed to limit the details. So then, surprisingly, instead of ignoring her, he chose to reply. And he starts it off with, even in my wanting to set things right, I failed you yet again. I'm sorry. It's like, dude, you're 30 years old. What is this? What, a soap opera? A 15-year-old would write this. Come on, man, get to the point. He continues, I will be more explicit. You're right. This is not merely about being a bad partner. Regardless of my intentions, my reasoning, my explanations, it does not change the fact that I was emotionally abusive to you and left lasting damage on you. It haunts me that I did this to you. Okay, progress. This is progress. He continues, I deeply apologize for not illustrating what I meant about your point regarding what I did during your birthday. Once again, I broke a boundary that you clearly set and I should have been aware of beyond a shadow of a doubt. I am mortified that I not only forgot the details of what happened, but that I ignorantly chose to not remember an important rule you had asked of me and made you incredibly uncomfortable and continue to destroy our trust. I am disgusted with myself over this particular point more than anything else, and I know that my apology I've presented so far has not been good enough, but if you believe nothing else, please believe me when I say, for all of the boundaries I've disrespected, ignored, and stomped on, I had no intentions of ever forcing myself onto you with or without any sort of implied permission. So again, he says, I had no intentions of ever forcing myself onto you. So what were your intentions? You know, like, help us understand, right? It's like you do something bad, you say you had no intentions. What were your intentions? What were you trying to do? Were you trying to tuck her into sleep or something? Like, what was your actual goal here? He doesn't specify. He then continues, I'm sorry as well for not delving further into what happened when we were in the car outside your office that day. I did not intend to leave out specific details, and I will take responsibility for that here. I didn't realize that this was even more terrifying to you than it already was. My own selfish emotions and the temper tantrum breakdown in which I begged like a spoiled brat about allowing me to do something you already weren't comfortable with is unforgivable. I unintentionally manipulated. Wait, what? Wait. Did he just say I unintentionally manipulated? Wait, what? Anyway, he says, I unintentionally manipulated you, took advantage of you, and abused you in your kindness and understanding because I couldn't keep my childish emotions and inconsistent moral compass I clung to under control. I know full well how wrong it was. Saying I unintentionally manipulated you is crazy. Then continues, I don't blame you for not being impressed. I knew that. Despite how much genuine thought and time I spent on trying to make this as real and sincere as possible to prove to you that I wanted to take responsibility for everything, that it probably still wouldn't be good enough and that you wouldn't forgive me. I don't hold any of this against you. At the very minimum, I appreciate the acknowledgement that I tried, but if the end result is still that I've come across as self-serving, then I will commit to making things better. I swear to you with every fiber of my being that this was not intended as a PR stunt or damage control of any kind. I know full well and have accepted that my desire to change myself means my life as I know it is going to change. I know this will affect my relationships, other people in my life who I care about, and possibly my career and livelihood. That is not my concern. My concern is to simply, for once, maybe even for the first time, just do the right thing. This is something he keeps referencing. He's 30 years old and he keeps saying over and over how this is the first time in his life that he's doing the right thing. What have you been doing for the past 30 years, bro? Seriously, tell me, because I think we might be able to put you in jail. Like, what do you mean? This is the first time. Oh, he continues. If I have not been explicit and open enough in all of this, I will reiterate. I was an emotionally abusive asshole to you, a person who I claim to love. I committed thoughtless and ignorant actions against you through our entire relationship, and I'm sorry beyond all imagination for how I made you feel. I want to share one last thing, and I know this has a risk of coming off as selfish. Oh boy, here we go. But I want to be completely openly honest about everything. I had legitimate thoughts of wanting to kill myself last night. Dude, come on. Oh my god. Suicide is a very serious topic, okay? But here's the thing. In his initial apology, he highlighted how he wanted to end his life twice. And now he's highlighting how he wants to end his life again. It's like, dude, listen. At a certain point, it becomes ridiculous. It's like, what, are you going to mention this in every post now, every time you're cornered? This really doesn't help his case. Here, let me give you an example real quick. Boogie2988 had a crazy fall from grace, right? He's one of the OG YouTubers. He's been in a lot of controversy, but recently he tweeted out a crypto scam, supporting it. CoffeeZilla, an investigative YouTuber, reached out to him, asking him, hey man, are you aware this is a scam? Why are you doing this? And Boogie said, well, it's because I have cancer. It then turned out that the cancer was fake. Surprise, surprise. He then got on a podcast with Keemstar and a couple other people, and he got cornered. What happened then, you ask? Well, check this out. Near the end of the podcast, he felt so cornered that he left his chair, as you can see on the top left, that's him, and then makes his way back with a knife, threatening to hurt himself, okay? I don't know what this knife is. Is it a butter knife? I don't know, but that's what he did, making Keemstar leave the podcast. Was he actually gonna hurt himself? Absolutely not. Did he get the reaction he was looking for? Yes. The problem of always saying you wanted to end your life, look, it sucks, all right? And of course, I can empathize, but at the same time, you genuinely did not have to mention this again. But it just seems like your ex was cornering your ass over your apology, coming in with a vengeance, and you felt so cornered over the fact that it was a half apology on your end that you had to just mention this again. People are very well aware of the strength this phrase has, like, oh, I tried to end my life. Everyone all of a sudden takes a step back and is like, oh no, we don't want that to happen. Wait. Maybe we can figure it out another way. Maybe we were too harsh on him. Because look, the truth of the matter is, yes, I laughed when I read this, okay? If he were to actually end his life tomorrow, I would be seen as a horrible person. That's what they're banking on when they say things like this. The fear that if he were to actually do it, I would look terrible. So I have to believe him and lay off and not give him any consequences. But while I would not want him to end his life, or anyone for that matter, I still have to call this out and say that this was so unnecessary to mention. Like, why are you mentioning this? If not for pity points, why is this here? You know, when I first started making this video, I wanted to stay neutral, but dude, what's the point, man? With things like this, what's the point? This is really stupid. 30-year-old man, by the way. Anyway, he continues, not because I wanted to take the easy way out or give up, but because I was so conflicted over if this was truly the right thing to do or not, and if it was actually a real sign of me wanting to change and be better. I needed to have a friend over to watch me, and I fully intend to see my therapist again soon to talk about all of my issues, my suicidal thoughts, my treatment of women in general, my temper, and my journey I need to continue on to finally be a decent human being. Again, I know this part of what I'm saying is about me and therefore to some extent selfish, but I swear this is about honesty and transparency about my intentions to set things right. Again, this whole paragraph, okay, you could delete it, it wouldn't matter, it wouldn't change anything, right? If anything, actually having this in your reply makes you look worse, like you're farming for pity, and as far as I can tell, that's exactly what you're doing. He continues, I'm going to apologize to all of the people I've hurt. I'm not expecting to change your mind in the process, nor is this solely for the sake of making it up to you alone. I will do whatever it takes to fix my mistakes. Thank you again for taking the time to read. So this whole thing was a roller coaster ride, right? And it prompted many people to see this and think, oh, this guy's a manipulator with the way he talks. He references the things that his ex-girlfriend is talking about in a very vague way, almost undermining them. And to many, this didn't really feel like an apology. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't matter. What matters is what the victim thinks. And yeah, His ex-girlfriend Amy did not really see this as an apology. She saw this as very weak and that he could do way better. He then went on to apologize to other people, as I mentioned. I'm gonna sum those up really quickly in an effort to not have this video end up being 6 hours long, but I still want you to have somewhat of a full picture on the scale of this. Audrey Carr is one of his exes. He says he's been a terrible partner to them, an even worse friend, and he vaguely references the things he did, kind of similar to Amy, where he put a lot of stress and anxiety on her and didn't treat her with the love she treated him. Interestingly enough, this is someone who forgave him after their relationship, but then grew to distance themselves from him again because of actions he had done. Another person here was Kaylin Denton, someone who had stated previously that Chris should acknowledge his wrongdoings publicly. He apologizes for being extremely toxic, very unpleasant to be around, an absolute egomaniac, etc., etc. It's interesting because Kaylin actually responded to this. You can't see this here, but you can see this on this website. I don't even know what this is, but thank you to my viewer Vampish Mick who sent it to me. Otherwise, I would have never found it. What we can find here is Kaylin responding to this whole apology and saying, the fact that you had to unblock me for me to even be able to respond to this post should be a good indicator as to how this apology landed on my ears. He then says, thank you for apologizing to me, but I'm also a person who doesn't need an apology, not from you. I called you on all of this ages ago and I knew I was right then. Your confirmation of that fact now does little to impress. He then goes on to say that this was a first good step, but he had many things left to do to truly try and redeem himself, saying, why were so few people included in your apologies? Where are your responses to the droves of people who you let defend you publicly when you stayed quiet in the wake of the callouts against you? This is referring to how people called him out in the past, he stayed silent, and let his fans bombard them online. And then says, if you want my honest opinion, which I have always given to you, it is that I think you're not sorry, but you're finally scared. I think that this is all done to keep your job. So overall, while he was thinking he was doing the right thing apologizing, they ended up doing way more harm to him and his reputation than good. He apologizes to a friend, Filthy Animal, who he hasn't talked to for over 10 years, for being insensitive, selfish, manipulating, and a bunch of other things, right? He then goes on to do the same thing with John Markle, Anthony Legato, and Tara Welker. Tara Welker in particular, he had a very lengthy history with. This honestly can be a separate f***ing video by itself, but just know, even though he wrote this entire thing and then replied to her reply on Twitter, she still does not forgive him one bit and she hates his guts, alright? This whole thing was very significant. It was crazy, right? This dude had pretty much admitted many things that were a colossal nuclear bomb, right? The fact that he's 30 years old, saying that this is the first time he's doing the right thing in his life, the fact that he's done this for over a decade to colleagues, friends, ex-partners. You didn't need any proof. He was admitting it himself. No one hacked his computer. No one put him at gunpoint. He was writing all these things. And honestly, they made him look way worse than the accusations. Who the hell says this is the first time I'm doing the right thing in my life when you're 30 years fucking old? It's just crazy. But regardless, Chris did still try, according to himself and some of his coworkers in the industry. A bit more than a year later, on November 19th, 2020, he made this post saying, just want to share my final piece and then move forward. Over the last year or so, I have put my full focus into rehabilitating myself into a better person and more recently to heal the pain of the people I had hurt. He said that he participated in various emotional cognitive therapy programs, anger management, psychiatry, self-help books, and even medication, and he's confident that he is not the same person that he was before. That he can't undo his past mistakes, and that it's because of this newfound empathy that he has been able to better identify, acknowledge, and rectify these mistakes. That he wants to take full responsibility to heal the pain of the people he had hurt and to validate their feelings, to listen, and to apologize. He then says that he recognizes that he contributed to the scale of the online scandal by publishing details of his personal matters. Oh yeah, he did. That he communicated reactively and emotionally and was at times even hyperbolic with his words. As a result, he says that he allowed the internet to distort the truth, which not only resulted in personal suffering, but created suffering for others related to the situation by extension. So here he feels the need to rectify this point, to really make it clear, I have never raped anyone, I have never beaten anyone, I have never stolen money or jobs from someone else. For all of the mistakes I've made, I am not a criminal, period. He ends it by saying, I'm still working hard to improve. I am not who I was a year ago. I am capable of change. I am not beyond redemption. I am worthy of living. I am not going to give up. I am going to keep going. So some other voice actors that even I recognize came out in support of him, right? Saying things like, I've seen how much you've changed and I'm so proud of the work you've put in. You know, Aiden Rudd, for example, is someone who voices Sam in Honkai Star Rail. Some of his fans are also very proud of him, and some other people couldn't believe a single word he said. They still were against him, no matter what. You also had Zeno Robinson, who had voiced in some big productions as well, quote tweeting this saying, Chris has been working incredibly hard to make amends, heal, and improve. I've watched him try to answer every single person he's hurt and really try to do better. He's definitely made huge mistakes, but maybe this can help clarify some things and help him start over. And I should mention too that one of the people that was in support of this was also Alejandro SAAB, aka Cyyu. The tweet isn't there anymore though, it was deleted. He explains that in his VOD, which we'll get to later. In any case, after this post, he slowly started making his comeback to the voice acting industry. While the online community wasn't fully convinced, it seemed that his coworkers and employers were. Now, is that because he told them the whole truth, or is that because he left some things out? I don't know, but he was making his comeback regardless. Looking at his IMDb, ever since 2019, he's had minor roles for the most part. You know, he was an NPC in Genshin Impact in 2020, was in a few roles in 2021, but then truly made his comeback in 2022, right? So a couple of years ago, he was in a few animes, and then in 2023 was also in quite a few animes up until his big break, which was Honkai Star Rail. Guys, you have to understand, the reason why this is a very big deal is because many voice actors have actually made their entire careers over being in a Hoyoverse game, whether it be Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, or now Zenless Zone Zero. These games are a very big deal. They have taken voice actors from being regular voice actors to public personalities, people who can stream, make YouTube videos, people with a following, celebrities. This is a very big deal. So after all these years in 2024, this signified his full comeback into the voice acting industry. But of course, as soon as that announcement was made, some people were starting to kind of question, wait a second, is that the same Chris Niosi I know? So news articles were made about him, referencing the things that we just saw, talking about them, but you know, with less detail. That's where I come in to give you the full story, baby, hell yeah. This is where things get very nasty and very tricky. A day after MOZE was announced for Honkai Star Rail, Cyyu tweets out, just got back on Twitter, okay, series talk tomorrow on stream, love you guys. So around 14 minutes in his VOD titled The World Needs Tech Support, and yes, I do voice in Zenless Zone Zero, he starts talking about it, right? This is what he says.
Anyway. 4 years ago, I commented on a situation I didn't know about. Like some of you guys, I'd heard about some of the accusations about Chris in 2019. I knew he'd admitted they were true, and I knew he promised he'd do therapy, and I believed that. I believed him, and when he said to me he had apologized to the people who he wronged and had been forgiven. And I want to make this clear, the only people who can forgive or not forgive Chris are his victims. I can't forgive him for them. That's not how that works. Okay? But when I heard they had, and that they supported his growth, I thought, oh good. That's what I wanted my tweet to be. My encouragement to keep doing the work and trying to grow, if that's what had brought his victims some peace, then great. I posted it, and then I didn't keep a close eye on the situation at all. I thought everything was fine. I thought it was okay. Until literally, like I said earlier, so many of you guys tagged me, and that's on me. I didn't know he hadn't spoken to many of the victims. I didn't know he hadn't been forgiven. I genuinely didn't know about half the things he'd been accused of, and again, that's on me for not doing my part and researching more, which is a pattern of mine, unfortunately. Ignorance is bliss, right? And look, I know we talk about how this is a space to escape from the real world and just have a good time. But at times, we gotta acknowledge the real world.
So that was what he had to say, right? He had come out in support of him seeking therapy and everything, especially like after his post in 2020. He had even made a tweet about it, but here's what he had to say about that.
You know? So, I deleted my tweet so it can't be used in any way. I'll be handling anything else going forward privately, but I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for breaking your trust.
Right, so I don't have to, thankfully, I don't have to do the web archive thing where I try to seek out one tweet he made in 2020. Look, he admitted it. He said he had made a tweet in support of him and he had deleted it so that no one uses it, I guess in a video like this. But again, as he mentioned, he didn't know about half the things that Chris had done, And this goes to show that maybe he had not told the full truth to some of his coworkers that do openly support him. In any case, he apologizes profusely to his community, and then around the 20-minute mark ends up breaking down crying, okay? I don't think it'll really help in any way to include this in my video, I'd rather not, but you can easily tell that this really got to him. And this sucks because Alejandro's position in general is something he didn't really ask for. He has been given the title of the voice actor spokesperson involuntarily just because he holds so much influence, right? 300,000 followers on Twitch, 200,000 followers on Twitter. Whenever a big problem happens, as I mentioned, people go to him first to ask him, right? When Elliot Gindi, the insane creep who was a Genshin voice actor, got outed and fired immediately, everyone went to Alejandro to ask him what he thinks. Whenever a controversy happens, everyone goes to him. This is no different. So that definitely gets to him sometimes. But he had told us his stance. He didn't know the whole truth, and he does not support anything Chris Niosi stands for. And while I thought that this was going to be one-sided, that everyone would all of a sudden turn around and go up against Chris, I was proven very wrong by this Reddit post that was made by Sunday's voice actor, a major character in Honkai Star Rail. This Reddit post was made on r/Honkai Star Rail and was titled English Voice Actor for Sunday Responds to Chris Niosi Controversy. Now, of course, this could be someone impersonating him, right? Because he is someone who doesn't really frequent the internet so much. But I verified the user, and he has done a verified AMA on r/anime dubs, right? This is actually his real account. Here's what he had to say. Hi, my name is GRIFFIN PUATU. I'm the English voice actor for Sunday in HSR. I wanted to make a post here regarding the Chris Niosi situation. Back in 2019, ex-girlfriends and former friends of Chris accused him of sexual, emotional abuse, and more. Those accusations were responded to by Chris, who owned up to and apologized for the things he actually did, while also correcting the record for what he did not do. No criminal charges have ever been brought against him, and over the past 5 years, Chris has struggled to improve himself and right those wrongs, while slowly trying to regain his ability to work again. During that time, Chris has earned the support of many of his colleagues, both privately and publicly. He has been hired by multiple studios for work in between then and now, even after facing consequences, firings, and blacklists for what he did. He has been hired by multiple studios for work in between then and now, even after facing consequences, firings, and blacklists for what he did. The reason why? Many of us had front row seats to everything that happened, and know that Chris has apologized, changed, and grown. We are happy he is working again and gets to pursue a living for himself in an industry that he loves dearly. If the people hurt by Chris believe he is undeserving of forgiveness or that he hasn't changed at all, then that's on them. Some of those people forgave him, some didn't. They have every right to feel however they feel, but that doesn't make it true, and it certainly doesn't give them the right to dictate whether or not Chris ever gets to work again. If your view is that no amount of change or apology is enough to forgive someone who's wronged you, and that you have the power to decide whether or not the individual gets to earn a living or not, then you're an unreasonable person. Those of us who have watched his journey from cancellation to growth and redemption, we believe in him. We've seen him changed, we've watched him take all of the right steps, not knowing if it would make a difference or get him his career back, but because it was the right thing to do. During that time, he's been hired back for roles at multiple studios, while other voice actors who faced cancellation have not. Why? Because his situation is different from theirs and warranted welcoming him back. My hope in voicing support for Chris is to broaden the discussion and provide another side to the story. Right now, Twitter/X is drowning in negativity, with death threats and calls for his firing running rampant. This type of toxic discourse is why I left the platform back in 2023 and no longer post there. I keep an account to respond to casting calls and auditions for my job, but I refuse to add fuel to the heaping trash fire that it is. I know posting this puts me at risk for the same sort of vitriol that Chris is facing right now. I don't care. I would rather stand up for my colleague than remain silent. I don't know if there's much more for me to say beyond this. I'm sorry if I do not respond to your comments. I have tried to be as thorough as possible with this post. Judge its validity for yourself. Thank you for being so supportive as a fan base up until now. I'm sorry if this changes your view of me, but I felt in my heart of hearts that this was the right thing to do. I hope you understand. When this was posted, guys, this blew the hell up, okay? This is... I can't state to you how big this blew up, okay? This was made 21 hours ago at the time of me recording this, okay? He has since edited this, we will get to this, but before he edited this, the comments were not what he was expecting. But most of them stated that they didn't even know who the voice actor was. How this was doing the opposite of what the poster had intended. This was actually bringing their attention to an issue that they didn't even know was an issue. Hoyo, after the Natland controversy, I got one more in me. I wanted to make a video about the Natland controversy, but, this was definitely higher on the priority list, I think. Hi, Mr. Griffin. I'd like to just say that in most industries, it's considered wildly unprofessional to use a company platform as your personal soapbox, aka saying, hey guys, this is Sunday's voice actor speaking. If your secret purpose was to raise awareness and get people to stare shit against Chris, then good job, because it was definitely not something I knew about until this post. And then you look at this. Mujin be like, I died, bro. I died when I saw this, man. Hey, shout out Fruit Punch Samurai. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Hey, thank you. Another 3-hour video for Mujin. Can't wait, to be honest. I loved it. Man, dude, I love the HSR community. What the f? You guys are amazing. Back to being serious, because this is a serious topic. As you can see, the comments range from I had no clue what the hell was happening, but now I'm aware, thank you, I guess, to what the hell did you just say? Now, after this whole controversy was unfolding, obviously, this post has, let's check it out. Let's go to old.reddit to see the upvote percentage of this post. And here you go, 54% upvoted at 1,300 upvotes, right? This is definitely a controversial post. Hey, little update one day before I upload the video. It's currently sitting at 50% upvoted and down to 644 points. People have been downvoting this post like crazy, especially with how much attention it's been garnering. Thought you'd want to know about that. Anyway, back to the original video. He ended up making an edit. And here we go. Hey guys, this is the last thing I'll say in regards to this post. Things have clearly gotten heated and I want to clarify some things before moving on. First, I am not blaming the victims for anything. All I said is that it's on them whether or not to forgive Chris or believe he's changed for the better. However, I don't believe they get to decide whether he works again or not. Second, I am not trying to apologize on Chris's behalf. Chris owned up to what he did 5 years ago in a public post. He also denied the things he did not do. I saw the firestorm brewing on Twitter and I couldn't stand by and watch him get piled on with no one defending him. I thought that by posting here in long form, it would open the door to more nuanced and detailed discussion. I was wrong. At the very least, I need to apologize for stirring things further with what I said. However, I don't think staying silent would have been right either. I completely agree that this should have nothing to do with me or you. This should be between Chris and his exes/former friends. But all of this was made public 5 years ago by the people involved. It affects the fans, the people who work with him, all of us. We should be able to discuss these things civilly, openly, and honestly. But the more time I spend on the internet, the more I realize that isn't possible here. This isn't the town square or a place to discuss things freely or openly. These sites only serve to ratchet up our emotions, whatever they happen to be, and clearly this is an emotionally charged situation. The truth is, none of us know each other. We all judge each other blindly, yet regard one another with the familiarity of a neighbor, friend, or enemy. And then ends it by saying, I wasn't trying to change anyone's opinion, though it seems I've changed plenty of your opinions of me. If you truly believe I'm acting inappropriately or unprofessionally, I don't know how to refute or agree with you. You can't see my intent, nor the tone of my voice. You can only trust my word. Same goes from me to you. That probably makes it difficult or impossible to trust me or anything we see on the internet. I don't know. I have no idea how to navigate any of this. I did what I felt was right. That doesn't make it so, but it's the best any of us can do. So look, one thing is obvious. Griffin was way outside of his element here, right? PR is a very complicated thing. Public image and public relations, everything about this is an extremely tough nut to crack. And unless you are chronically online or have been doing it for a long time, it's very hard to make a post like this that will actually have somewhat of the results you're expecting. Griffin was completely blindsided here and ended up making the situation a gazillion times worse. I'm not even kidding. This post has made it so much worse for Chris. It's insane. You have 786,000 members on this subreddit, and many of them who are online have been alerted to this. A lot of them had no clue about it beforehand. And look, what Griffin was trying to do is stand up for a friend. Man, that's very admirable, but the problem is his wording was so terrible, it was so dog shit, that he ended up making himself seem like he's the same apple as Chris. They're both from the same tree. This is overall a really screwed up situation. Griffin has already suffered his first consequence for coming out in support of Chris, losing a role in a project he was on. This happened in less than 24 hours of him making the Reddit post. Things were starting to get real. Alice Homura, who voices another major character in Honkai Star Rail, the character Robin, who ironically is Sunday's sister in-game, made a subtweet on the situation saying, "To say I'm thoroughly disgusted is an understatement," following it up with her announcing that she's taking a break from Twitter. Kyle McCarley, a successful voice actor in the English dubbing industry, tweeted this in reply to Honkai Star Rail's tweet announcing MOZE as a character. He said, "Chris Niosi is not a monster, he was a bad boyfriend, and he martyred himself in the court of public opinion for it." And then when you click on it, here's what you see. This post is from an account that no longer exists. That's right, he deleted his Twitter account shortly after. This, again, did not help Chris. Just like Griffin's post on Reddit, this didn't help Chris. Even if you wanted to defend him because you truly felt like that was the right thing to do, this action right here, deleting your account as soon as you got backlash in your replies, doesn't help at all. He then specified in his Discord that this wasn't him undermining the victims, it's just that cancel culture has been getting out of hand and that he didn't want this to happen to someone he's seen change so much over the years. But as I said, this really didn't help the situation, and not many people even got the chance to see what he said in Discord, so does it really matter? Look, objectively speaking, this isn't just another case of someone being cancelled out of the blue. This isn't like South Korean cancel culture, right? Where someone's being cancelled, people want to end their careers because they started dating someone, okay? Chris, over the years, had many people, co-workers, colleagues, friends, whatever, come out to say how toxic, how abusive, how unpleasant of a person he is. He chose to ignore all of them, and as far as we know, it didn't affect his career. Because guess what? It was he said, she said. There was no proof. And I think it's safe to say that in 2019, when Amy, his ex-girlfriend, wrote up the post calling him an abusive boyfriend, the same thing would have happened if he didn't respond, but he chose to respond. And in his response, he ended up making himself look a million times worse. This is simply about someone who was in a position of power and chose to use that power to commit malicious deeds. Does that mean that he should never hold another job in his life? No. But at the same time, would it be too crazy to assume that some people would just not want to have someone like that in their favorite game? I don't think so. And this leads me to Hoyoverse. With their infinite budget and the infinite talent pool available to them for voice actors, it just really, really perplexes me as to why they would go with Chris out of all people. I do need to specify here though, this is not Hoyoverse's fault, this is the agency they hired, this is the studio or whatever that they chose to hire to pick out their talent. At a certain point, there was a controversy in which voice actors weren't being paid for their work in Hoyoverse games. Hoyoverse wasn't even aware of this. This was fully on the studio. But regardless, the responsibility does fall upon them because that's who they're hiring, right? And unfortunately, whenever you hire someone like that, you are tainting the reputation of anyone else who has voiced for your game. And there's many very talented and cool people who voice for characters here. Why would you take this risk? Why would you do that to yourself? So they have to be very careful with this. Look, I find it admirable that even though it was a very big risk, you had friends of Chris who defended him throughout this whole thing. Sure. But my question is, were they doing it because they truly saw change over the years and truly recognized that this is a different person, or were they misled like Cyyu, who didn't even know half the stuff that Chris had done? I don't know. But I'm not about to send any hate brigades originating from this video, right? So we're not gonna sit here and theorycraft about that. It is completely up to you, the viewer watching right now, to make up your opinion on that. I think you can still make up your opinion even though I wasn't fully neutral halfway through the video, but can you blame me, dude? Come on! As always, I just hope that in the process, no one gets hurt. I think we have enough victims in this situation. What a mess this is, dude. Can we just go 1 week without something like this happening, please? Thank you so much for watching. If you watched the whole thing, as always, you're insane, and I love you, and I'll see you the next time I upload, whenever that is. Yeah. Mwah.